G'day everyone, just thought I'd pop in and have a quick chat with you all about a shoot that I did on the weekend. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for some people to actually get on because this wasn't a scheduled one. I just thought I'd just talk to you about it. So I'm just going to say hi into the chat. So if you are logged in, please say hi. I'm going to give it around about a minute to let people come in, and then we'll have a discussion about how my A9 went yesterday. The more that I use that camera, the more that it just amazes me. I used it on the weekend, I should say, on Saturday and Sunday in a whole series of shoots. So I want to talk to you about that. But if you can, please give us a thumbs up because I'd love some more people to pop in on board and obviously say hi. Hi, Michael. How are you? Good to see you here. I know daylight savings has changed for you guys, so I suppose it's a bit different. What is the time over there? Let me just check. Yeah, it's 9:30 p.m. in New York. It's 6:30 p.m. in Los Angeles, and it's 2:30 a.m. in London. So I don't know how many UK people we'll get, but we've got a few here. David, how are you, mate? Good to see you here. Yeah, so please say hello, guys, if you are actually watching. I'm going to show you a little bit of some images that I took on the weekend in Lightroom because I'm going to discuss how it went, the shoot that I did on the weekend, and I'll talk to you about one little problem that I had that I probably could have overcome, but I thought I was going to use the A9 in a different way. But I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. We'll give it about another 30 seconds and then we'll get into the chat because I'm excited to talk about what we did. Yeah, have a chat, have a chat amongst yourselves, guys, in there. Obviously, if you want some live questions answered, please leave those in the live comment box because I will bring that up at the end and we can have a quick discussion about what's going on. I don't intend this to be very long at all today. But you can ask your questions there, and if you're joining a little bit later, you can leave your questions down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I do always answer all of the questions personally, so yeah, I'd love to see you all on board. Hi Altric, how are you, mate? Good to see you here as well. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just crop over to the host images sign and then we'll get started, guys. All right, so just hang on just for a minute. G'day everyone from down under. Another lovely day here, or late spring day here in Melbourne. The weather's just improving all the time now, and I'm doing a wedding this weekend, which is going to be a really interesting wedding. I think it's going to be around about 30 degrees Celsius, but I love the heat, so I'm really looking forward to that. And it's actually going to be in a place called Ballarat, and there's a castle there that I'm going to be doing a wedding for a couple. And I usually don't do weddings like this, but I'm really looking forward to it because it's sort of a theme wedding, and I think they're going to also use some props and things as well. So I can't wait to have a go at it because it is sort of a medieval type like castle. And they're going to do a few things from that. So I'm really looking forward to actually doing it and see what we come up with. So obviously I might show you some of the results that we come up with from that. My wedding season now is starting to pick up. I've got multiple weddings now for a few months. So I should be able to show you a lot more of my wedding work. Go through those shoots with you, things like that. I am still planning to get back onto my setting up your wedding and photography business. I just haven't had time, but I will get back to that as well with you guys because I want to show you some features of what software and things like that I use. I just want to say hi to a few people that are here. Michael's here. We've got David. Altric's here as well. Alex is here as well. There's a lot here, actually. Guys, please give me a thumbs up. Let's see if we can get some more people on board. For the live chat. If you want any questions, leave these in the live chat and I will come back a little bit at the end to take you through that and I'll answer any questions that you have. I don't intend this to be a very long one today, so it's not actually going to be a very long video, but I just wanted to talk about the Sony A9, so we'll start that now. As you know, I've recently got the A9, not that long ago, a few months, but the more and more that I use that camera, the more it amazes me and what it can actually do. And I used it extensively on a shoot this weekend. It's the first real sort of dance session that I've done. I work with a very large dance studio here, and I used it in their photographic session for 2 days. The shoot goes for 2 days, and we have multiple shoots going on. My business does multiple shoots there, and that does cause one implication, and I'll talk about that soon, and the reason why I wanted to shoot the A9 in a certain way. So I'll talk to you about that. But it's just an amazing shoot. I've got 2 complete setups. We do a Christmas shoot there in one room, which is all lit up. This is all lit up with my Pro Photo gear, but it wouldn't really matter what gear you're using. But it's all lit up extensively with multiple lights. I think I used every single bit of gear that I've got in my studio almost to light this thing up, because the actual lit up area where the dancers were actually working from was around about 15 meters. It was really quite long and wide because I wanted the dancers to be able to run and do jumps. And naturally, because it's a white backdrop, I had to light that in a certain way, which I'll show you very shortly. But I did have to light that up in a certain way, and I had to use multiple lights. And what I might do in another broadcast, when I can get the behind the scenes downloaded, I'll actually show you those as well. I don't think I've got it. Let me just check on Facebook, because my wife may have put up a behind the scenes image. So let me just see. So just bear with me a second, because I'll just check. Because if I can show you a behind the scenes how this setup would work, it may be even better. So she may have put one on. So I'll just have a look and see if she did. Because if she did, it'll make life a lot easier. To show you what I actually did. Oh yeah, it does. Okay, I can show you this. All right, so let me pull up this image. So as you can see here, this is only part of the setup. So this is the area that I'm running white paper, and the white paper also goes right up the wall, right up to the height, and this is a very high ceiling. So it takes a massive amount of paper. I think the paper that I used for the whole day was around about $1,000 Australian, so it was very expensive because you have to keep changing it due to the fact of keeping it clean, so you're not having to retouch too much. So the paper was incredibly expensive to all set up, and you can see the lighting setup that I have here. I've got all of these lights that I'm using all around the area around here. There's one light obviously that's lighting the back. These have got big wide zoom reflectors. Just let me bring up the desk scribble so I can talk to you about what I've done here. So you can see here that one there it's a wide zoom reflector, so it does spread the light incredibly wide open, and I've got 2 of these. I've also got another one that's just outside the camera here, and they're beaming light onto this background, and basically they're filling the whole lot and overlapping in the center actually through here. So there's a lot of lighting that's actually going on in this thing as well. I've also got one light here, and obviously the main light in the front. These are to light this area, that's to light that area, and obviously the main reflector in the middle lights all the center coming through here. So it's an incredibly hard setup to actually get right, and to sort of have everything exposed correctly, and to have even exposure across the whole lot of this white background. It takes a lot of work. Now, the only thing was, because I was running another studio with a Christmas shoot in the second studio, all of these lights, that one, and I have 2 lights in another studio that are all my Pro Photo lights. Now, they can sync up to 10 frames per second if I wanted to. So that's one big advantage about that. So they could run at 10 frames per second. But this one here, I ran out of Pro Photo lights. I've only got one. What have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 Pro Photo strobes. But obviously I was using 2 Pro Photo lights in the other room as well. Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I've got 6. I was using 2 Pro Photo lights in the other room for the Christmas shoot. So I had to use 1 extra light, and the light that I used for that was the Jimbai HD 600, I think it is. And that's basically this one here. Now, that one won't keep up with the 10 frames per second for doing sort of very fast exposure work. So that can be an issue if I'm trying to expose very quickly. It just doesn't keep up with that. So I had to decide to shoot in a little bit of a different way. You can see here that I'm actually just testing in the middle. I've got my light meter there, and I walk across the whole area and check individual sections for light metering, and I checked at the back here as well. To make sure everything was basically exposed around the F8, F9 mark. And again, guys, if you want questions about this, you can ask them in the live chat, and I'll come back to you and talk to you about that shortly. Also, you can leave questions down below if you're not watching this live. So that's the actual shoot itself and how that works out. Now, like I said, this is incredibly high. I'm not sure the height of this ceiling, but you can sort of tell by me that it is incredibly high. And like I said, that paper went basically right up the wall, up to here somewhere. So it did actually go very high up into the back as well. So, it's a very big setup. Like I said, it cost me $1,000 of paper to do this for the actual day, because it's ridiculous the amount that I have to keep changing and setting up. And these rolls are the massive rolls. They're the really big ones, 30 meters in length. And I can't remember the actual width, but they're not the normal small rolls. They're the really big ones. So let me just get rid of that, because I'd like to sort of talk to you now about the actual shoot itself. Might just minimize that. So this is the shoot itself. Now, basically, when you're looking at this, one of the hard things to do when you're doing these sort of jumps is to get the perfect moment. And that's an issue. You can see here that I've used 1/640th of a second, f2.8, and I'm on ISO 2000. And it's 35mm f1.4. Now, I'm shooting this natural light. The reason why I had to do the natural light on this shoot was because I couldn't shoot for starters, the A9 will only shoot 5 frames per second. Even 10 frames actually is not, I don't believe, fast enough to really get that perfect moment for a dancer that's sort of running across the stage and jumping. And the difference is now, I've found, before you would always sort of luckily get one keeper, but with the A9 you never miss the moment. And this is why I'm saying to you that the A9 is really an incredible camera if you're trying to get that exact moment in time. It's really a game changer for me, and it's certainly been a game changer for what I do with my natural or capturing a dancer that's in midair. And I did stacks of these on the day, and every single one of them has worked amazingly. But I'll talk to you about what happened and why I decided to shoot this way. Was because on the original shoot, which is here, now there was some others, and I could have tried to get multiple shots of this to get it perfect. But the issue here is because I was shooting with the Jimbai on the other one of those other lights, I couldn't use the fast frame rate. In other words, it wouldn't shoot at the 10 frames per second or whatever I wanted to use. And to be honest, I've shot with the A6500 before, and that's around that 10 frames per second or 9 frames. I can't remember the exact amount. But even then, you can miss that perfect spot. And you can also see that the movement here, because I've shot at 1/25th of a second, hasn't been enough basically to freeze that motion. And you can see it basically when you're looking through these areas here, that, when you're looking through this section, you can see it all there, that it hasn't grabbed that perfect, very sharp look about it. And like I said, I probably could have, remember the native sync speed's 2/50th, so I could have put that up to 1/250th. But again, it's often not fast enough to shoot it for that exact moment and to be frozen still in time, which is what I wanted to have with this dancer floating in midair. So basically what I decided to do was to shoot with the electronic shutter. So I turned off the flash, and I decided to use the electronic shutter. So basically, all I did was, I'm using the 35mm f1.4 here, so I'm actually getting 15 frames per second because that's not a 20 frame per second lens. But I'm not showing you all of them here because the screen before these was blank and the ones after that were blank because she was running onto the screen. But the incredible thing, oh hi Ben, how are you? The incredible thing with this camera is, this was on autofocus, and basically all I did was leave it on wide area. And remember, the A9 can basically use 96% of the actual viewfinder. I just put this up to my face, and then as she ran in, I just pressed the shutter, continued to keep pressing on the high mode, and as second she came into the viewfinder, it grabbed her immediately. And she was running incredibly fast because they have to jump up like they are. The focus on this camera is absolutely insane. And I cannot really say to you how much this has changed the way that I work and the things that I can do. It's a game changer for me, and I very rarely do use game changer as a thing, but This is absolutely incredible what this camera can do. And like I said, for something to be able to get autofocus, they were off the screen. The second she came in, it nailed her. And you can see, now remember, this was ISO 2000. I've had to increase the shadows a little bit because I underexposed this a little bit. If I'd exposed this perfectly, these would have been really clean. So there is a little bit of noise there, but that's not going to be an issue with if I use some noise reduction on this to get rid of these. These are going to be fine for what I'm actually going to use. Again, like I've said to you before, if you want to use high ISO, you really do have to nail your exposure. This was under fluorescent light too. Now, when you think about this, this is incredible because this was incredibly challenging light. These were fluorescent lights. This is the electronic shutter, and when she's jumping, there's no banding in this image at all. There's no distortion from these images. There's no rolling shutter on these images. I'm just amazed in how it actually worked. So you can see basically what's happening here. If I scroll through these, like I said, the ones before that were blank because she hadn't actually come into the screen yet. And the ones at the end, she'd run out of the frame. So when we're looking at them, you can see basically what's happening here. And every single one of these has nailed focus. And again, if we keep coming across, the only thing I probably would change next time, I think I'd even up the shutter speed a little bit more because you can see her foot's got a fraction of movement in it. So I probably could up the exposure a little bit more, the shutter speed, because if these are 1:640, I probably could have gone up to 1,000 or something, and that really would have frozen it. But again, I'm going to come back so I can show you the like the moments. So basically she's running in, and like I said, she was running very fast here. The focus is tracking her right across. It's just a wide area. And basically then, I've then got the choice of choosing 3 perfect moments. And again, you could only do this if you're shooting at that frame rate that I was shooting at the 15 frames per second or 20 frames per second. Even 10, you would be losing a few of these frames in between. So, you know, that's the difference of shooting with this type of shutter speed. And then obviously she's starting to come out, and then she's run outside the actual frame itself. So, like I said, I was just blown away. I couldn't believe the focusing on this camera. And you think that I'm using this silent shutter, so there's no noise. So if I was doing ballet, something like that, there's no noise coming out at all. So I wouldn't, the problem is if you use a mechanical shutter, you're still going to get that bang, 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 bang. And if you were doing something where it's very quiet or whatever, you can't do that. Well, there's no noise here at all. There's no rolling shutter at all in these images. Every single one of these ones is tack sharp. And it's followed her by the wide area focusing on the camera when she ran out from side the screen and into the screen. I mean, guys, let me know what you think about that. But honestly, I can tell you I've done this for a long time, these dance sessions, and I've never, ever had a camera that could produce results like what I've seen that would nail focus immediately she came on. Normally, I would manual focus on a point, and that's how I would do this. And then they'd run across and jump. I didn't have to do it. This camera was tracking the second that she came onto the into the frame from outside and in, and you can see where she's just come into the frame basically here, and it nailed her instantly. Incredible. I mean, honestly, absolutely incredible. So I'd love to know what you think about that, guys, and you know, let me know whether you think that, you know, that might be something that you'd be interested in having, that frame rate. Like the thing is too. And this is where I was talking too about people are saying they're going to sell their A9 for getting an A7R2. Well, you have to consider, yes, the A7R2 will do 10 frames per second, but it won't do 15 to 20. And when you're dealing in this type of work, those frames per second can be the difference of having that perfect shot or not having that perfect shot. You know, that's the difference. So it can make a difference in some of your work, for instance, like this type of work, or if you're doing sports particularly, and that's where the A9 is going to excel in this sort of scenario. But just to be able to do this with like I said, silent shutter, no distortion, dead silent, and the focus was insane. That focus coming in the second she hit that viewfinder, it nailed it instantly. So I'd love to know what you think about that. So yeah, let me know in chats. I'm just going to bring up the chat because I'll see if anyone has got any questions. Like I said, I'm not going to make this too long today. So let's go. As most people are just saying hi. Let's have a look. Go get a beer, Michael. I know I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to a beer. Not today, though. I'm working. If I have a beer, I won't be working. What else? I know Altric's getting his A9 will be here tomorrow. You're going to love it, Altric's. Just incredible. How is the image quality of the A9 in comparison to the A7R II? Well, the colour science is definitely better, Alex. The colour of the A9 is much better than what my A7R II is. Now, I'll say the A7R III will probably have the same colour science. So they're probably both going to be as good as one another. I mean, they may have even improved it a fraction more with the A7R III, but there is a definite massive improvement with the colour science of the A9. Check out one of my videos down below because I compared it to the Canon 5D Mark IV. And basically, they're identical. I can't tell any difference. So the A9 is definitely a big step up from the A7R II. But I mean, I suppose there's other issues too. Remember, the A9 is not a perfect camera either, because if you're dealing with landscapes, I really don't think I'd be using the A9. I'd be using my A7R II. Or if you've got the A7R III, I'd be using that because you're dealing with something that has more resolution. If you want to shoot in studio and have the ultimate resolution to do skin retouching and things like that, you'd be using the A7R II or the A7R III. So basically, I still think as a professional I need both. And like I said, eventually I probably may get the A7R III. At the moment, I'm happy with the A7R II. But, you know, if I didn't have that, I'd be definitely buying the A7R III. So I hope that answers that question, Alex. What else? I'm thinking about getting one. That's just talking about other stuff that's on there. What have we got there? Can you use two UHS-1 cards in the A9? Yes, you can. It's just that the only difference is if you don't use the faster card, Altrix, it slows down. If you're writing at 15 to 20 frames per second, if you don't use fast cards, it slows down your buffer. So if you fill your buffer, that's when you'll be waiting. If you use very fast cards, you won't have to wait for that buffer to clear anywhere near as much. But to be honest, I never hit that buffer at all. So it's never really a problem for me. I don't think I've hit it once yet. So these people that talk about you can only shoot for 30 seconds or whatever, I don't know, whatever it is, but I've never ever run out of the buffer. So, you know, it's fantastic. But you can use, yes, UHS-1 cards, but it does affect slower write speeds, as David has said further down, actually. Keith said 1000 would have been on point for sure. Yep, I agree, Keith. And next time I probably will use 1000th just to stop at just that fraction more. But the interesting thing is that when you go back to here, that one there, which is that, and this is the beauty of, say, capturing multiple shots, that one there, she is rock solid. So because you're catching so many images in one go here, I mean, you can see there, that's sharp. So it has captured that one. So in some ways, yes, I suppose if I shot 1000th, all of them would have been tack sharp, but I'm shooting so many, the difference between some of them and the next shot, you will get one that's dead sharp at that exposure. So that's one big advantage about using that shutter speed. So I am happy with actually what I got, to be honest, with that shutter speed. Lucky for me, I have a 12 frames per second camera and can do it. What else have we got? Ben Ashford, is that the borrowed A9? No, Ben, I'm still waiting on hearing about mine. There must be big problems with it because they haven't got back to me yet. But I've got this loan camera to keep until Sony replace it. So if you're not sure what Ben's talking about here is, I had an issue with my Sony A9. It was corrupted, the files in it. I sent it off to Sony, and within a day they sent me back a replacement camera, so I've got one on loan until it's fixed. So fantastic Sony Pro support has been amazing. I don't hold Sony responsible for a hardware failure. It happens. I've had other cameras. My Nikon I had to send back because of that dust, that oil splatter that was going on. I think it was the D610 or whatever it was. I had to send that back to Nikon. All cameras can have a problem, but I'm really happy with how Sony looked after me in that regards. So I haven't got it back, Ben, yet. No, that this is the borrowed A9 that I'm using. But like I said, I can keep that now until mine is fixed. So I'm in no hurry. They can take as long as they like because I've got a replacement camera. And the thing I can say too, Altric, buy the Sony rated cards. They're the ones that I use. Buy those, which are the fastest Sony cards. I think SanDisk now have ones that are equivalent. But if you're paying that much for the camera, don't skimp on the cards because it may be the difference, of you being able to sort of check and review, or if you did ever fill the buffer, it would clear that much faster. If you've bought a camera like that, don't basically cripple it by putting in less, speedy cards. Michael said, if Sony puts SLog profiles on the A9, I will get 2 of them. I know, I just hope it happens, Michael. I really do hope that they put SLog in the Sony A9. It's like I said to people earlier, I definitely think the Sony A9 has the best video that Sony produces. It's by far better than anything I've used before. It's way better than these A7Ss. It's way better than the A6500. And it probably will still even be better than the A7R3. Because the sensor is so much better. But the issue is if you do need to use SLog, well, then you can't, and that's the issue. That's why the A7R3 will be the better overall video camera. That's why I'm not sure that Sony will give you that in their A9. I'm hoping they do, but they might be hoping people who have the A9 will also buy the A7R2 or 3. Michael said I would still get the A7R2 because they're 2 different animals. And they are, Michael. I totally agree with you. It's like I said, I'm lucky I've got the A7R2 and the A9. If I didn't have the A7R2, I would be definitely buying the A7R3. And I may even buy that next year. I'm still just waiting on what Sony release next before I make a decision on which way I'll go. I'm not even 100% sure that I may not even just buy another G9 as a second video camera. I'm still deciding which way to go yet. I definitely wouldn't be changing my A7, my Sony gear though for stills, and also the A6500 is the best camera you can put with autofocus for something like a gimbal. So even if I do go down the GH5 route, that will only be for my video side of it, even though they do take amazing videos. Check out the last video I just did. It shows how good the GH5 actually is. But still, the Sony is a step up in stills. So I may go down the GH5 for the video side of it, and then keep my Sony for the stills and also video at the same time. So that might be what I do. But I'm sort of still waiting to see what Sony release for the A6700, or if that's out, or the Sony A7S3 or A9S, whichever way that goes. So let's wait and see. But you still can't beat the resolution on the A7R3 or A7R2. I agree with you, Michael. You need both cameras if you can afford it. It's a tough choice if you can only afford one though, guys, and that's what's really hard about this. Is it is a really tough choice if you've only got the money to buy one camera. That's where you have to look at, are you doing more work like what I've just showed you, which is dancing, sporty type work? I still believe that the A9 is still the best wedding camera in the world. If you're doing events and weddings, I would buy the A9. Definitely, I would still buy the A9 over the A7R2 or the A7R3. If you're doing a mix of like portraits, landscape, and also some weddings and things like that, well, then you'd probably buy the A7R2 or the A7R3. So it just depends which way you want to go. There's no perfect camera that's actually out there. So it's tough to know. It's tough to know which way to go if you're only buying one camera. You really have to look at which way and what type of images you're shooting all the time. But that focus for me, like I said, that focus with the dancers coming across with that 96% coverage on the camera with the wide area focus was insane. I've never been able to do that before, and I had a D4S. I've never been able to get that type of capture like that on using autofocus. So game changer. Yeah, it really is. Is there any last questions, guys, before I go? Because I'd love you if you have any other questions. If not, please love you to give me a thumbs up so other people can see this. Share down, ask some questions down below if you want any of those questions answered, because I do always get back to people. And I may even edit a couple of these too, and show you how I go about editing these images as well. I've just posted one on Facebook actually that I've done as a sneak peek, but I might edit another one and show you how I actually go through that as a live chat, and we can talk about that as well. But great setup. So happy with how the camera performed. Once again, I think Sony has hit it out of the ballpark. What a great camera. Just said they should have had an XQD option. Well, perhaps, but the only issue is it probably would have had to make the camera a bit bigger. That's the issue for me. I'm happy. Look, like I said, I'm happy with the SD cards in that camera. They're cheaper. They're fast enough for what I want to do. Like I said, I've never, ever ran out of buffer. If you're running out of buffer, it's an incredible amount of images before you run out of your buffer, and I'd never be shooting that long. These dances, for instance, I was shooting for quite a while. Like I said, I had a few blank ones and a few blank ones at the beginning and at the end, and I still was nowhere near running out of buffer. So it's not an issue, and I could just keep shooting. I could review the images on the back. Yeah, it's not an issue. Keith saying, go have a beer. Like I said, Keith, I can't have a beer. I'm working today. If I have a beer, I'm going to relax and just chill. I'm going to have a beer with you guys on Friday morning for you guys when I do the live chat. So I'm going to have a beer with you then, guys. So have a beer with me. I'd love you to have one then too. All right, guys. Well, I might leave it there. I'll have another video up. I might even do one today as well. I might put another one up shortly. I might work on another one of the Sony or something. And I'll have another video up tomorrow as well. So it's been great to chat with you. Keith said he's also put a video up, so go and check that out, everyone as well. And I'll see you all again soon for the next video. So have a great day, guys. Catch ya. Bye. I should say g'day because I'm from Australia. G'day.